So you're McKinsey in the early 2000s. You're a ruthless consulting firm who puts sales and capital above all else. And you've just found the perfect client, Purdue Pharma. Purdue sells one of the world's most addictive and profitable products, opioid drugs, like OxyContin. Imagine getting to sell basically the equivalent of heroin legally. That is the business Purdue was in, and McKinsey had just been hired to boost their sales. It was a match made in heaven. Both you and Purdue will do anything to make an extra buck, so you set out on a disinformation and sales campaign unlike any other. You sell people drugs you know will kill them eventually?
McKinsey advised Purdue how to avoid FDA and pharmacy restrictions because McKinsey knew that people were overdosing and dying and getting sick from OxyContin.
You sell them so well that over the next 2 decades, hundreds of thousands of people die from opioid overdoses. And because of that, Purdue's sales go up and you get your consulting fees. Your client sells drugs and profits off of people getting addicted to them, just like a drug dealer. Except drug dealers go to prison. But because you're a well-connected corporation, you just need to issue an apology and get away with just a $600 million fine when you make over $10 billion a year. A national health crisis, billions in taxpayer dollars to set up rehabs, the alleged indirect killing of thousands of people, and the worst you get is a glorified "please don't do this again"? This is McKinsey, the most evil consulting firm in the world, and this is how they pull it off. McKinsey was founded in 1926 by a University of Chicago professor named James O. McKinsey. Today, it's the oldest of the big 3 consulting firms. A management consultancy like McKinsey is filled with business and economic grads from Ivy League schools like Harvard and Yale, and they're hired to give advice to big businesses on how to improve their performance and efficiency. They go into big businesses and governments to find them ways to make more money, save more money, and streamline their organization. This could mean rearranging the way a business is organized, creating new strategies to become more profitable, or just helping the leaders of a business or country run a tighter ship. If that sounds boring, you are right. But think about it. They're getting paid huge dollars by the biggest companies in the world to give advice. They don't have to manufacture anything. And that's why they make over $10 billion a year. McKinsey is one of the best in the business, but they're also ruthlessly committed to profitability, which is always good for the businesses they're consulting for, but it's not always great for the customers or the general public. And McKinsey has had its fair share of scandals. Enron, the infamous bankruptcy that took $74 billion of shareholder money with it, was created by an ex-McKinsey employee, Jeff Skilling. McKinsey earned millions from Enron for promoting its business model and offering consulting services for over 20 Enron projects. McKinsey also advised President Trump's team on anti-immigrant and migrant detention policies. They suggested cutting spending on medical supplies in migrant detention centers, restricting the caloric intake of detained migrants, and streamlining the deportation process. And that's not all. Remember the 2008 financial crisis? Yeah, well, McKinsey was involved in that too. McKinsey's 10-year CEO, Rajat Gupta, was convicted of insider trading from it. And even after all these scandals, McKinsey still advises some of the biggest companies and governments in the world. Their clients include Best Buy, the US Department of Energy, the Department of Defense, and even the US Postal Service. Even though they've been involved in some seriously questionable schemes, their methods obviously work and they've stayed in business. Today, they have over 130 offices all over the world and serve 80% of the Fortune 100 companies. If there is a true puppet master behind all these giant corporations, it is McKinsey. And after nearly 80 years in business, you were stronger than ever. So when the chance came for you to team up with a pharmaceutical company that shared your hunger for profits and sales, well, it was time to go all out. If you want to make a lot of money in business, one important aspect you might overlook is your health. After all, health is wealth. It doesn't matter how much money you have if your health isn't there. And you can't make as good of business decisions when you're unhealthy either. That is where Noom comes in. Noom is a digital health platform that uses a combination of science and support to help people form healthier habits, because healthier habits are a lot more effortless to follow once you have the tools to learn them. And Noom doesn't tell you how to live your life. Instead, Noom creates a personalized plan that teaches you how to meet your health goals without depriving yourself. Here's how it works. First, you tell Noom about your gender, age, eating habits, and how much activity you do daily. Then, based on your responses, Noom creates a personalized plan to fit your lifestyle and a timeline for reaching your health goals. From there, you're ready to start developing healthier behaviors at home. Noom uses real psychology and therapy techniques that lead to long-lasting changes in your habits. Part of the reason why Noom is so effective is that their plans focus on educating Noomers instead of restricting them. One feature that's really helpful in this learning process is the daily Noom lessons. On top of the lessons, Noom has a food and exercise tracker so you can stay organized and know precisely how many calories you're munching on every day, and Noom also comes with an awesome support system. You're paired with a goal specialist training psychology, fitness, and nutrition who acts as your one-on-one coach. You can message your goal specialist about anything related to your health journey, like when you're having trouble sticking to your workout schedule, or you need advice about making meals with leafy greens that actually taste good. If you've been frustrated with how to take control of your health, start by creating a fast, simple, and free Noom evaluation that will help you create your own custom health plan by going to noom.com/JakeTran with the link below. That's noom.com/JakeTran with the link below. Thanks to Noom for sponsoring this video.
Less than 1% of people get addicted to OxyContin.
That's not possible.
But it is.
Companies like Facebook, Instagram have to put in a lot of work to build an addictive product. But what if you could shortcut all that nonsense by just selling a thing that will always be extremely addictive at a molecular level? Well, that's what Purdue Pharma came across in the 90s, OxyContin. OxyContin is a doctor-prescribed painkiller that was originally made to help cancer patients deal with pain. It belongs to the same class of drugs like heroin and fentanyl, called opioids. Think of this business kind of like big tobacco on steroids. For years, Purdue Pharma made millions from selling the drug and telling doctors there was no way it was addictive. So doctors would prescribe it for everything, from toothaches to sprained ankles. Yes, an addictive painkiller made as a last resort for cancer patients was being used for toothaches. But then in the early 2000s, they ran into a problem. People were starting to realize OxyContin wasn't as great as Purdue advertised. Suddenly, sales nosedived, doctors stopped prescribing it so liberally, and everyone got a lot more careful with the medication they were taking. Something had to be done. Purdue Pharma was sitting on a multi-billion-dollar product they couldn't sell because people thought it was addictive. They needed help. And that's when Purdue Pharma called McKinsey and asked, "How do we keep drugging America?" Not sure if that's how the call actually went. And McKinsey couldn't wait to take over the operation. In 2004, McKinsey was brought on board as the management consultant, and the race to turbocharge profits began.
Of all doctors in the country will be sent pseudo-addiction pamphlets. Give one to any doctor if their patients show signs of addiction. Pseudo-addiction.
Your first order of business was to find ways to boost Purdue's OxyContin sales. To do that, you would allegedly have to do exactly what Big Tobacco did. Convince people that all the news about opioids being addictive and bad for America was really just speculation. It wasn't the opioids' fault people got addicted, they were just using it wrong. So you went on a full-blown alleged disinformation campaign. Purdue reps would tell doctors OxyContin was way less addictive than other opioids. They would encourage them to prescribe higher doses of Oxy to their patients, and even after Purdue was found guilty of lying to doctors about the risk of the drug, they just kept selling. And allegedly, McKinsey was at the heart of all these tactics.
McKinsey consultants actually went with Purdue sales reps to doctors' offices here in Massachusetts to critique them on how effective they were at selling OxyContin.
With sales back on the rise, you had another problem to deal with, the FDA. McKinsey was already advising the FDA on drug regulation policies, while you also conveniently forgot to tell them you were consulting for Purdue. While at the same time, McKinsey went to opioid manufacturers and suggested you could help them avoid, quote, strict treatment from the FDA. And it worked. With fewer restrictions and doctors being told Oxy was the best opioid out there, drug money went on the rise, and so did the addiction rates. Opioid sales were rising faster than ever, which meant you and Purdue had a new problem: people dying. People would get addicted to opioids like OxyContin, accidentally take too much of it to get high, and then overdose. You knew the opioids Purdue sold were dangerous, but who cares? You and Purdue were swimming in drug money and you weren't gonna let a few people dying stop you. Again, allegedly. So you got a brilliant idea. You needed pharmacies to keep selling Oxy, but they probably wouldn't want to if the overdoses affected their business. So what if Purdue offered pharmacies a rebate for every person that died or became addicted to OxyContin? Pharmacies would have no reason not to work with Purdue anymore. Think about it, if Purdue paid, let's say, $14,810 per event, an event being a person getting addicted or dying, and let's say 2,484 customers at a CVS pharmacy chain overdosed or became addicted, Purdue would only have to pay CVS $36.8 million for the trouble. A pretty good deal and just simple math. And this is a real presentation McKinsey made, by the way. At the same time you were pushing opioid sales higher, you even had the audacity to post articles with titles like, "Why we need bolder action to combat the opioid epidemic." But then, Purdue got exposed, and things turned ugly. Around 2018, Purdue was already under investigation, and McKinsey's top executives started realizing the amount of trouble they could be in if their work to push opioid sales were uncovered. It was only a matter of time before investigators got to you, so the only logical choice was to destroy evidence. According to one McKinsey executive, they were deleting all of their quote documents and emails, anything that could get you in trouble for your methods. But clicking delete on a multi-million-dollar deal with hundreds of people involved didn't really help much, and investigators eventually found all the documents McKinsey was trying to hide, and the spotlight was on you. As with every company that has ties to US politicians, the punishment for McKinsey's involvement in Purdue's opioid free-for-all was pretty much a slap on the wrist. Purdue Pharma got destroyed. They were forced to shut down and to pay billions of dollars to help rehabilitate people. But McKinsey, you got a tiny $600 million fine and basically a request to stay out of the opioid industry forever. Considering you make over $10 billion in revenue a year, $600 million is a setback, but it's definitely not a harsh punishment. Only 6% of revenue. The closest thing to an apology anyone could get out of McKinsey? A 3-paragraph blog post titled, "McKinsey's Statement on His Past Work with Purdue Pharma," about how you never expected this would happen. And in true business consultant style, you even found a way to make your fine and Purdue's downfall a little bit sweeter. Most of the money you and Purdue made will go to funding state-run addiction treatment centers and rehabs. Which is great for McKinsey because one of your wholly owned hedge fund affiliates, MIO Partners, has indirect stakes in not just drug rehabs, but the manufacturers of medication used to treat overdoses. You profited from opioid addiction, and now you'll likely allegedly profit from people getting rehabilitated from it too. McKinsey sent out a spokesman to call this allegation false and absurd. For decades, you have been playing the system, and you definitely aren't going to stop now. But if you thought that was the most atrocious thing McKinsey advised on, that is not even close. See, McKinsey was allegedly one of the main firms that sold out America to China by telling US companies just how much money they would make if they shipped their operations across the world to China. But you would just have to subscribe for that feature video.